Hope you found this as interesting as I have. I liked what the guy was saying, or it could be a lady, was saying about soil amendments, improving the soil, what sort of crops they were growing. And I also like the picture of the orange grove where they painted the trees, which is kind of, well, they do that a lot in Eastern Europe. I'm not sure if it has any effect, any benefit on the tree, but now people are starting to paint them in other places around here to keep the sun off the tree. Anyway, get back to the last part. Thanks for watching.
A haven for the gardener. In the vegetable garden, there are just as many surprises as there are in the fruit and flower garden. The Irish potato grows quite as well as the sweet and gives as good crops as in Maine or New York. They are ready for shipment so as to reach the northern market about the same time that we are planting potatoes in the New England states. Cabbages are ready by the 1st of January, and the October planted garden is giving carrots, beets and green peas about the same time. I find that my pole beans and my bush limers particularly like Florida. Melons cover all the highlands and ripen in May and June. Of course, they get into New York City ahead of any rival and command their own prices. Among the nut trees, the pecan is coming into decided prominence, and many more groves will be planted if the nut could be realized a little sooner. For the present, while potatoes can demand $3 a bushel and sweet potatoes $1, they will stand among the favorites. I suppose that no longer larger and finer melons grow in the United States than right here. We can ship them by the carload, averaging over 40 pounds to the melon. Celery might be a favourite crop, only that along the St. John's River, irrigation is so much more easily secured than the energy of our people can best be applied to something else. The pine tree has a happy faculty of renewing itself by seedlings. A northern forest of beech or maple is always followed by some other sorts of trees, but there are pine successes itself. The annual fire destroys millions of yearlings. Still, you'll find it everywhere, little groves of pines that have not been scorched. I think that we shall see Florida pines restored to their control after the turpentine fellows are also under the control of the law. Our neighbours are of four sorts: the genuine cracker, the Negro, the relics of a race that came to exploit Florida and was conquered by the freeze of 1895, and a more recent influx of homemakers. The last class is a well-sifted lot, and pretty sure to be able to take a stout grip of the land. The trouble with the exploiters of 1880 to 1890 was that they were not farmers at all and came with borrowed money at 20% to plant orange groves. They spent every dime they had clearing a place in the forest and planting an orange grove. The neighbours. The freeze took them from all their investments and drove them pell-mell from the state. They were teachers, ex-ministers, worn-out lawyers, while very few of them knew how to hold a plough or plant a garden. The Negro of Central Florida is a pretty good fellow, moderately industrious and civil. I've never seen one who is either rude or drunken. Even if we have no prohibitory law in Florida, this town has not one saloon and it only has one church. There is no loafing place or even of an evening except about the post office and on Sundays, and the people all gather together for handshaking and possibly to listen to the parson. I do not think the church has any special influence except of a social sort. Theology is softening here as at the south almost to the degree that it has in New England. The Negroes, of course, have their own church, and they have their own theological squabblings. The Negro woman is much more industrious than the Negro man, and generally speaks to her husband as something that she has picked up from somewhere to take care of. He is her man. The cracker is often a first-class farmer, and peculiar only for his twang and his curiosity. He is a Southern Yankee and looks upon every bit of news or information as something that he may ask questions about that he likes. He will listen, if he can, to a private conversation, and his manners are his own. But in the Florida Cracker there is a lot of making. Only a very small minority of them desire to live in an old, half-savage style of 50 years ago. The people who are coming at this date are also to be divided into two classes: those who only hire a cottage for a winter, and those who buy in order to create a home for themselves. Migratory farming, as we call it, is a growing fashion. Northern farmers find it possible to work 7 months in the north and close up their apple picking and corn husking and get down here early in November, in time to harvest their oranges and plant a winter garden. In the trucking region, the farmer gets here in time to take care of his celery and lettuce gardens. The Negro exists only at the north. Negro question only exists at the north. Here there is no more distinction between whites and blacks than there is between employers and employees in New York, with the exception of 2 or 3 conspicuous features that can be talked about. Separate churches and separate schools are sure to pass out, only so far as the Negro himself prefers them. The Negro car is a nuisance every way, and yet, when well filled with a lower class of field Negroes, it is not a desirable place for a decent white person. Industrial education is slowly but surely making a change with both whites and blacks, and injecting a good deal of more common sense into social relations. Some features of the old slave life had an element of the beautiful, but the old mammy has gone forever. Where one of them is to be found, she is merely a curiosity. The new type of Negro woman is a laundress. She takes your washing at 10 cents an hour, carries it to the side of the pond or lake, often half a mile from her house, where she has a big iron kettle hung over the wood fire. Her garden has lettuce, tomatoes, and sweet potatoes, which she cultivates herself. She is probably living with a third or fourth man. They are all alive, but she prides herself on having only one at a time. So it is that the civilizing process zigzags somewhat, and only in the long run can you discover that there's any progress. The Negro makes a good teamster, and some of the preachers are really shrewd, if not pious. My ploughman tells me that he picks up his texts mostly round the fields, case the good Lord has sown in mows everywhere, and mighty good ones. Yes, sir, I picks them up right down here in your lot, sir, and then I rolls them over and talks about them with old Billy here, sir, till my heart gets mighty warm and happy, sir. What have we done, and what are we going to do? We have at least built a home where we can be out of doors nearly every day of winter, and most of the time in our shirt sleeve. In January, the thermometer averaged somewhere above 70, going up sometimes to 80, and at night dropping to 65. We have 4 fireplaces, and about sunset, a few blazing pine knots make a delightful place to think and rest. We pull off our shoes, push our feet to the fire, and soon ready for a dreamless sleep. We can sleep out of doors if we prefer, in hammock beds which are swung in our broad veranda at night, but drawn up to the ceiling during the day. We see very little meat, and have never seen a butcher or a butcher shop. However, fresh meat comes into the village once a week. We live mostly on eggs, sweet potatoes, and oranges. Our bees work all winter and furnish us plenty of sweetening. Our hens lay us well in January as in June, and we have plenty of pasturage for cows. A bowl of bread and milk, filled to overflowing with mulberries or blackberries in April or May tastes as good as it does sitting under the northern apple tree in August. An overcoat is rarely touched, although there are a few chilly days dropped in at no regular date. The atmosphere is simply delightful, and roses understand it as well as we do, for they are in blossom all winter. Gripe is sometimes brought down by tourists, but it cannot live here. At this moment, I can step into my garden and pull for dinner fresh peas, fresh cabbages, fresh carrots, or I can pick a mess of collards or a huge eggplant, and at any time dig a mess of sweet potatoes, while there is a supply of cassava for puddings and pies. This is the kind of garden we have in Florida. Make it at any time that you please, but if made for winter or in September or October, you must look out for possible frosts. Have plenty of loose compost to throw over the plants if the thermometer should happen to drop as low as 33. I have seen it as low as 28, but 0 or anything like it knows not Florida.